Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Komet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey Scott, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I know we're more than 3 weeks into it at this point, but obviously it's been a long time since we've done this. So Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's been a little bit over a month, I think, but it feels like a long time for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, it definitely is a long time for us. The past 2 years, we've had really short off seasons as a result of Cavalry qualifying for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And while that didn't happen this time around, we managed to compile a lot of topics for an episode. So I think we agreed that we should probably hit the record button before the end of January. So here we are.
If you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
I'm definitely going to have to read this out because I don't have it memorized anymore. But we focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk a lot about the city's two professional soccer teams, those being Cavalry FC and the Calgary Wild. But we also talk about the city's grassroots teams and players, as well as the post-secondary and League One programs. So basically all things Calgary soccer. And this is the launch of our 4th season. Jason, we're approaching our 3-year anniversary. This is episode 155, but season 4, episode 1.
This week, our topics will include Cavalry FC. We're going to talk about their signings and some of their departures. We'll talk about the Calgary Wild, also what's new with them in the roster department and the front office. And we'll talk about Calgarians that have made moves to different clubs around the world in the last month or so, and also touch on Voyageurs Cup because we've got 2 Calgary-based teams in it this year.
Yes, we do for the first time, thanks to Blizzard's success in League One Alberta last year. And Jason, those player movements you've mentioned, interesting to see that quite a number of people we've had on our podcast have landed with clubs around the world. So excited to kind of bring up those names again.
Let's start off with Cavalry FC and talk about what's been a pretty busy month or so for them, even though it's been the off season.
Hi guys, it's Elijah Adekubi, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So even though there's snow on the ground and Cavalry hasn't played since losing that final against Atletico Ottawa a couple of months ago, as you mentioned, it's been a pretty busy month for Cavalry. There have been a lot of announcements in the last few weeks regarding players signing with the club or players departing the club. We've already talked, I think, quite a lot about the departure of captain and starting goalkeeper Marco Carducci. And Jason, in our last couple of episodes before we took our break, we speculated that Nate Ingham would be his replacement. And shortly after we took our break, we found out that was true.
Nate Ingham signs with the club for a 3-year contract. Yeah, the Cavs look to be set at the keeper position for a while. And so while the loss of Marco Carducci, he kind of was the heart and soul of this team for pretty much all its existence, this signing of Nate Ingham, it's probably, if you have to find a replacement, I'd say that this is probably about as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's a very sensible replacement, and I'm excited for him, and I'm excited about this. I really like Nate Ingham as a goalkeeper. I think he has a lot of great qualities, including leadership. Right, like he was a true leader for that championship-winning Atletico Ottawa side last year, and I think he's going to do a great job for Cavalry. Obviously, it's going to take some time to settle in and get used to his new teammates and new surroundings, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And of course, he's not the only player from Atletico Ottawa to sign with Cavalry for 2026, is he?
Yeah, the Cavs have really only announced 2 new players thus far as of recording now, but the other player they signed, yes, also from Ottawa, and a huge name, Amer Didic.
Yeah, longtime CPL pro, started in 2019 with FC Edmonton and was a stalwart for them and earned a Canada national team call-up. And yeah, he's also played for, I believe, Pacific FC and as mentioned, Atletico Ottawa, with whom he just won a championship. So this is a really important signing, I think, for Cavalry. He's going to give Tommy Wheeldon Jr. a headache, I think, in terms of deciding what his back four is going to look like, because he's going to be immediately competitive for a starting spot.
I think it's going to be really interesting just to see how he's going to be utilized. Like, he's a really big guy, and on set pieces, both offensively and defensively, he's going to be really valuable. And also, I was thinking about this too, and defensively, he's really strong, obviously, but this is really going to give Dan Klomp even more of an opportunity to wander around the field like he does sometimes, because you've got somebody else that definitely can pick up some of the slack in the middle at the back.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. He could maybe have that Kaiser role, right? The Franz Beckenbauer role, where even though you're a center back, you're carrying the ball forward and you're involving yourself with the attack. But yeah, I mean, this means that pending any changes to the roster that we don't know about yet, Cavalry's center back core currently includes Dan Klomp, a 2-time Defender of the Year in the CPL, and Amer Didic, who has been one of the CPL's best center backs since the inception of the league. And then we've got Cal Montgomery, who's coming off probably his best season for Cavalry. And then we've got Levi Lang, the Englishman, who has also showed a lot of promise and potential at that position last year. So I don't know if all four will be back. I think that's probably a pretty crowded position at the moment. But in terms of the back four and the center back position in particular, Cavalry's looking really strong at the moment.
Definitely. And as it stands right now, though, the Cavs do still have some roster spots available, because those are the only 2 new signings announced, but we have some departures to talk about beyond Marco Carducci.
Yes, so some big departures in midfield. Shamit Shome, who we have long called Cavalry's unsung hero, he's out of contract with the club. And Diego Gutierrez, who I thought was instrumental in Cavalry's 2024 season, missed a lot of 2025 with injury and didn't really have as strong a season when he was back fit. But his option has been declined for 2026. So defensive midfield, there's, I think, definitely some gaps to be filled.
When you look at who's on the roster right now, Michael Baldissimo signed a new contract, so he's going to be around. And Nico Myroniak had his option activated, and so did Eric Kobza. So beyond those 2 players, a lot of the other players are back. But when you look at it, there's not tons of depth there. It seems like, they are going to need to sign someone in that position. Max Piepgrass sounds like kind of an obvious option.
Yeah, and you and I were speculating, and just to confirm, this is total speculation, but there is a player who you and I would either like to see back with Cavalry, think is a realistic option for some reinforcement in defensive midfield.
We were talking that maybe Elijah Adekube could be back. I think we were both of the mind that he could be in Vancouver FC's plans for 2026. But I don't think that's happening. They're already back in camp, and if he was going to be with that club, I'm pretty sure they would have announced it by now. So if he's not going to Vancouver FC, it's not going back to York United, Inter Toronto, where is he going to end up? So I think maybe. What do you think?
I mean, I have no idea, to be honest, but I do like him. I really liked him when he was with Cavalry from 2019 until, I want to say, 2022. Yeah, I mean, obviously, raised in Calgary, I think still has family here. So it does make sense from a personal standpoint. But then again, so did Vancouver FC, and we haven't seen that happen. So yeah, he's obviously not going back to York United. He's bid farewell to that club. So we'll wait and see. But he is a player that I think would fit in very well with the roster as it stands.
Couple other players to talk about that have left the club. Tom Field had been with the club for quite a long time. His option was declined, and he has signed with Vancouver FC. And Ayman Salouf also had his option declined.
Yeah, Salouf, I don't think you and I were surprised by. And yeah, I thought they might keep Tom Field just because he had such a strong playoffs. Tommy Wheeldon Jr. highlighted how well he played in the games against it was Forge and York, right? Like he was putting in man of the match performances and played in the final as well. So obviously he wasn't a regular. He didn't always get 90 minutes and he did have long spells where he was on the bench. So not too surprising to see he won't be back, but considering how his time finished with the club, I think he can hold his head really high and say that he put in a great shift.
With him leaving though, and with Mikhail Gerasimenkov signing with the Whitecaps, the Cavs are going to need some kind of cover for left back. Right now, all they have is Bradley Camden-Fawo, and they need to have another option besides him because, if there's injury or suspension or something else, they need someone back there. And right now, they don't really have anyone who can play that position that I'm aware of.
Yeah, we should definitely expect a left back to be signed in the coming weeks. Brad Camden-Fawo, I think he has that spot locked down in terms of when he's fit, but no, they're going to need some backup at left back for sure.
Let's talk about a couple of the players whose status are still uncertain. And I think let's move over to right back and talk about what's going on there. Fraser Aird, no word yet.
Yeah, no word yet regarding Fraser Aird, who's been Cavalry's starting right back for the last couple of seasons. I think that'll definitely make Cavalry fans nervous. And the player who's often right in front of Aird on the pitch, the fact that he hasn't re-signed with the club will probably make fans nervous. That is, of course, Ali Musi. And in a end-of-year interview that Cavalry posted to its social media accounts, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. did actually say that it's unlikely that he'll be rejoining the club for 2026. He kind of made it sound like Musi wants to pursue a new challenge, kind of like what Marco Carducci is doing. So, yeah, I mean, they could both end up back with the club, or they could both be gone, or one of them could be with the club and the other could be gone. But yeah, those two players, I think, are ones that Cavalry fans are really wondering about at the moment.
I kind of expected Fraser Aird back. I thought of the two, he was the more likely one to come back, and I guess he still could. But the Cavs have re-signed Michael Harms, who plays right back. So he could be an option, although, he's still in the developmental stage. But and Ali Musi, I think it seemed likely that he was going to, see what was out there and test the market. But I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't signed anywhere yet. I guess we don't really know what his options are, but yeah, I was kind of thinking that, maybe someplace in the CPL or maybe in the USL or who knows, maybe even abroad, but nothing yet.
Nothing yet. And that is also the case for Nicholas Veiling, who has held one of Cavalry's international roster spots for the last couple of seasons. I don't know about Nicholas Veiling either, obviously. I think he played more last year than his previous season with the Cavs. But he's a player who, Jason, I don't really know what to make of, because he seemed to have some really good performances at right back, but that's not what they signed him for.
Here's the thing with Veiling. He occupies an import roster spot, and he's, not a regular starter on the team. And on a lot of teams, that would be a problem. But Cavalry has lots of import roster spots available. The only spot that they're actually using right now is Levi Lang, because their other players like Dan Klomp, they count in as that naturalized status because they've played in the league long enough. But Veiling is kind of multi-purpose, and who knows, maybe if Fraser doesn't come back, then he could get some minutes there. And I also don't think you want to underestimate the fact that, he's buddies with Tobias Warshevsky, and sometimes, that could be worth something, right? You want to keep Toby happy, and if they seem to be pretty tight, so maybe that's another point in favor to bring him back.
So let's rattle off some of the names on the current roster that we haven't already mentioned. Joseph Holiday is back. He'll definitely be deputizing at goalkeeper for Nate Ingham. I think we've rattled off everybody in the defensive ranks. In terms of midfielders, Maël Henry is back. Jason, I'm hoping he can really put forward an injury-free year, because he has so much to offer when he's fit, but has suffered a couple of pretty bad injuries. Sergio Camargo, he'll be back. I'm wondering if he'll be the club captain. I think he's one of the few players on this team who will be in his 30s, and the only player on the pitch from the inaugural 2019 team. So Camargo, Henry, we mentioned Eric Kobza, Nico Moroniak, and Michael Baldissimo, and then midfield is rounded out with youngster James McGlinchey.
And the forward position, we've got Tobias Warshevsky, Kanija Elva, Goten Natigny, and a name that I think most of us have kind of forgotten about, but is going to be back in play this year, Jay Herdman.
Yeah, Jay Herdman back after his spell with Vancouver FC last year.
I think this is interesting because, last year we had big expectations and it just never really seemed to work out with Jay Herdman for whatever reasons. But right now with the departure of Salouf and Musi and Veiling, not being signed yet, right now up front, there aren't very many signed players. So I think he's going to get an excellent chance to kind of redeem himself and become part of this team in 2026. And the opportunity, I think, is going to be there for him.
Well, I'm not sure because he is usually played on the left, and that is where Gauthier Natigny is as well. So between the two of them, I have to think that based on last year, Gauthier Natigny has that spot locked down. But yeah, obviously Jay Herdman came in 2024 and had an immediate impact at left wing before Gauthier Natigny was back. So maybe we'll see those two battle it out for a starting position on the wing, or maybe we'll see one of them converted to a right winger and they'll be more like Arjen Robben and they can cut in and shoot with their favored left foot.
Yeah, and right now there are 7 roster spots available. So we are definitely going to see some more signings in the next little bit because training camp starts pretty quickly. Open trials are next week, and I believe training camp starts immediately after that.
All right, before we move away from talking about Calgary FC, Jason, we should mention that head coach Tommy Wheeldon Jr. He had a pretty cool opportunity with the Canadian men's national team recently. He was called up to help with their camp in California a few weeks ago.
Yeah, the so-called Camp Poutine, mostly North American-based players, and they did play a friendly against Guatemala. So pretty cool opportunity, I would think. A bit different, Tommy's kind of been the captain of the ship for a long time. I think it's been a while since he's been sort of in a assisting role. So yeah, I think it probably, when we have a chance, I'll probably ask him about it. But it's, I think it would have been pretty cool and good for him for getting that call up.
This is Lydia Bedford, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, now let's talk about Calgary Wild. They've also seen some player movements, player departures. One signing has been announced that I think we're going to talk about, that being at goalkeeper. Katelyn Talbert, an American, she has been named as the Wild's new woman between the sticks, Jason.
She's not a rookie pro. She's been playing in Europe a bit. I think she's was with West Ham United most recently, and they loaned her out to some other teams. But she's got some experience in Europe, and I would think the Wild are expecting her to compete and likely start as keeper this year. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, we know that Steph Vukovic left the club, so there is kind of an opportunity to claim that starting spot. And the Wild do have other goalkeepers on their roster. But yeah, Talbert brings a pretty impressive portfolio and resume. You mentioned West Ham United, but she's also played with Benfica in Portugal and has had stints with Tottenham and Aston Villa in England, as well as Djurgårdens IF in Sweden. So lots of pro experience. She also played in the NCAA before playing pro and was named the Defensive Player of the Year in the PAC North WPSL in 2020. And she was voted best goalkeeper in Portugal's Liga BPI in 21-22 by the Players Union. So, all of that. And she's played in the Champions League. I think she's really going to shore up the Wild's goalkeeping, or at least hopefully she will.
As of recording here on Thursday evening, she's the only new player announcement thus far for the Wild. We've seen a couple of the former Wild players sign on with other teams. Ali Green signed in Denmark and Mike Rolfsma signed in France. But yeah, we're still waiting on more player signings for the Wild.
We've seen a couple of staff departures. Hey, Jason, we should probably talk about, most notably, Alix Bruch is no longer with the team.
Yeah, I got to think that that's at least part of why we haven't seen too many announcements regarding new signings. Alix Bruch was the sporting director for the team, so kind of top of the pyramid. She's the person who was guiding the team. She hired Lydia Bedford. No formal announcement made, but I checked with the club and he is not with the team anymore. So I'm kind of not sure exactly what's happening with football ops right now. Like, who's doing the recruiting? Who's doing the player signings? What's that all looking like right now?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe Lydia Bedford is playing a more direct role in that regard. You did find, Jason, the club posted a job posting for a director of football operations. but based on the position summary, that position is slightly different than what Alix Bruch was doing. It says that the DFO will be responsible for leading and managing all operational aspects of the club's football activities, ensuring that the team environment is professional, efficient, and aligned with the club's strategic objectives. Yes, it doesn't seem as much like a scouting and hiring type position, but I don't know, I may be wrong. But yeah, pretty big departure and one that was, kind of made very quietly.
Yeah. So, like, what's your analysis of how everything went with, with Alix Bruch's 1 year with the club? Yeah. Do you have specific thoughts about what you thought of how she did?
It's hard to say. I guess her role was a lot more behind the scenes than Lydia Bedford's was, right? And it's hard to gauge what her performance as a sporting director per se. But what we do know is that the club struggled to compete last year. So from the player recruitment standpoint, they did miss the mark with a lot of signings, and we know that I think 6 players have departed. And of those 6, a lot of them, Jason, you and I talked about, kind of weren't quite at the level they needed to be at. So maybe there's some room for improvement in the players scouting and recruitment side of things. And yeah, I mean, we'll see how her replacement does when someone is hired, or we'll see how, I guess, Lydia does if that is something that she's taking a bigger role in this season.
Yeah, I'm presuming that Lydia Bedford is really now quite in charge of the football decision-making process. When you look at that football ops job description, it talks about coordinating with the academy director and coordinating with the physio and coordinating and the head coach. There's no talk about other, like a general manager or a director of player personnel. So I think she is now kind of the de facto player personnel recruiting person. So if that is the case, that's she's got a lot on her plate. And I'm not really sure how much she's done the recruiting before. Maybe she's done some I'm just not aware of, but certainly that's a lot. That's a big role if that's what she's doing.
Yeah, but I think a lot of head coaches like to do it all, and we see that in European soccer as well. Jason, I watch a lot of Bundesliga. I'm a big German soccer fan, and Germany is different from like in England and a Premier League, in the sense that most Bundesliga clubs have a head coach and sporting director, and very much like it seemed with the Calgary Wild, the sporting director is responsible for recruitment, hammering down contracts and things like that, how long a player will be signed for, that kind of thing. And then the head coach, it's really the tactics and the game day decisions and who's going to play in each game. And I think someone like Pep Guardiola, who came to the Bundesliga in 2012, and he didn't really like that setup. He didn't like that there was someone else who was kind of signing the players, and he would have to figure out how to create a system with those players. And I think that was one of the factors that led to him leaving the Bundesliga after just 3 years and going to England, where he could have that, total control over a club with Manchester City. So I don't know if that's what's happening here or not, but if that is, maybe Lydia Bedford wants to have that much influence over the entire operation.
No matter who's in charge of recruitment, they at this point they've still only signed 1 player. But here's my question for you, Scott. Right now, they have 19 returning players and possibly 20. I'm trying to verify whether Anderson Williams is still with the club or not, but at least 19 players are returning. They've had 1 new player, and they've either have 4 or 5 roster spots available. Now, I just want to ask you, Scott, like, for a team that doesn't make the playoffs, does it sound like, bringing in 5 new players and keeping about 20 sounds about like the right ratio?
I mean, no, right off the top of my head, no, but it really depends on those 5 players that are brought in, right? Like if they're immediate impact makers, then maybe that's fine. But no, considering how last year went, I think keeping more than a dozen was going to be risky.
One more note about the Wild and their front office. They signed a new academy director. Her name is Kennedy Kirash, I believe.
I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. Kirash. But yeah, she'll be taking on this new academy that is rolling out in February. She's familiar with the NSL. She was most recently an assistant coach and video analyst with Halifax Tides. And she's held coaching jobs in League One Ontario as well as with York University's women's team and with Canada Soccer as well. So yeah, don't know much about her other than what was in the news release, Jason, but good to see that they found somebody with some NSL experience.
Because last year, the whole Wild in League One Ontario, that was sort of an odd setup the way they had it, where they didn't really have a dedicated team. They had sort of a mishmash of players that sometimes played for their club team and sometimes played for the Wild. They didn't really have a devoted squad. So maybe this year they're going to really go out and just sign some players that are sort of full-time Wild players as opposed to what they did last year.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to work with League One Alberta.
This is Mila Schneider, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So our final segment of tonight's episode, Jason, is just kind of talking about player movements. A lot of the people we've had on our podcast, as mentioned, have joined new teams, either professionally or otherwise. Let's start with Channon Chanda, former Cavalry and Mount Royal University player who we were so certain was going to be named in the CAMPL U Sports draft this year. He is heading south of the border.
Yeah, he's going to Penn State. Huge program. Do you think that maybe this had something to do with why he never got drafted in the CPL draft?
I guess so, because we couldn't believe it. We figured he was going to be named before Cavalry even got to pick, right? We thought he'd be third or fourth, and he wasn't named at all. So we were like, what is going on with Chanda not being picked? So it feels like this must have had something to do with that if he was already in talks or had signed his letter of intent with Penn State. But that just makes the fact that he was even on the draft in the first place all the more kind of confusing. So the other possibility is that Penn State was his fallback option if he didn't get drafted. But I don't know. Lots of questions surrounding this move still. But yeah, as you mentioned, Penn State is a huge college program in the U.S.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow along, see how that all works out next fall.
And let's also talk about our recent podcast guest, Siard Strauss, who goes by Sharky, Mount Royal University's starting goalkeeper for the last 2 years. He is joining a CPL club, but not Cavalry, which is what we first speculated might happen.
Yeah, he's going to be joining Forge, and he's already in training camp with them. I think they were off to Mexico for preseason, so cool opportunity for him. I'm kind of excited for him.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when I say join, not like sign with, but try out for.
All right, another player with Calgary roots signed in the CPL. A guy that I don't think we've really talked much about on the podcast the last couple of years, even though he's been playing pro.
Yeah, I actually have to confess I hadn't heard of him. But Finn Linder has joined Halifax Wanderers. He's 21. I think he has played for New Zealand's U23 team and 44 games in MLS Next Pro for Vancouver Whitecaps too, but not a player we've talked about on the podcast before.
Yeah, he's a big guy. I think he plays center back, but I think he's really tall and he has the connection, being with the Whitecaps and with, Halifax's new coach being the former Whitecaps coach. I think they know each other from way back. Yeah,
that's a big move, hey, from the edge of the West Coast all the way out to the East Coast. But yeah, I think you're right when you look at the fact that Vanni Sartini is going to be Halifax's coach this year. So yeah, good luck to Finn Linder. He can talk about Calgary with Marco Carducci.
Yeah. Okay, and let's go across the pond. There's a couple of Calgarians that signed in Europe here just this week, I believe it happened.
Yeah, the Schneider sisters signed with a team in Portugal called SC Rio Tinto. Jason, are they a second division club?
They are a second division club. I looked, and the way Portuguese women's soccer is, they have a national first division, but then they've got the second division, I believe, is divided into two segments, and they're in one of the segments, and I believe their club is kind of middle of the pack right now.
Yeah.
So I got to confess I'm not familiar with this team, but yeah, kudos to them. I think that's really cool experience to go play pro soccer in Europe, and really cool to do it with your sister, I would think.
Absolutely, yeah, and of course these sisters are Mila and Emma, and it won't be the first time they played together. They played together in college as well with the University of Maine, as we've talked about.
And with in League One Ontario with Foothills last year and Blizzard the years before. So yeah, they're used to playing together for sure. So best of luck to them. There is one other player that we don't have an announcement yet, but I think one is going to happen soon.
Yeah, that would be Izzy Monk, who has wrapped up her college soccer career, Arizona State. Before that, she was one of the Calgarians with the University of Memphis. Yeah, I think, Jason, we can expect an announcement pretty soon regarding her professional soccer future.
Yeah, like I noticed on Instagram, she made a post here within the last week, and it was very much like a farewell, thank you to college soccer and Arizona State. And, it's the kind of message you put up when you're leaving like imminently and going to do something else, in my opinion, at least. So I would think that we can expect to see her signing somewhere over the next little while. Not sure where, but I think, we kind of always suspected, pro soccer was in her future. So who knows, maybe it'll be with the Wild or another NSL club or somewhere else. But I have a feeling before too long, we'll be talking about her signing on another episode.
I think so too.
One more point we want to mention, we found out the new coach of the State women's soccer team.
Yeah, familiar name to us, Jason. We've had her on the podcast. Jess White will be taking over from her longtime mentor, John Tallarico, who we announced a few months ago was going to be stepping down after a decade at the helm of that program. Jess White makes a lot of sense as she has been with this program, I believe, since 2019.
It's kind of a bit of a passing of the torch. John Tallarico is still going to have some level of involvement with the club. And I think they've put together a pretty successful formula there. So yeah, no shock, and congrats to Jess White for sure.
All right, Jason, we've been chatting for a long time, but let's just wrap up this first episode back with a mention of Voyageurs Cup action. Still a few months away, but as you mentioned, 2 teams from Calgary will be in the National Cup tournament this year. Cavalry FC, their first round appointment will be with Pacific FC. We've seen that matchup before, and it hasn't always gone that well for the Calgarians. But then obviously Blizzard, thanks to their success in League One Alberta last summer/fall, they're in the tournament this year for the first time and will be taking on CF Montreal.
Yeah, that's going to be a really cool experience for them. Going to Montreal and playing an MLS team. Interesting challenge. I think it's going to be really hard, but what a cool experience.
Yeah. Have we seen a League One champion take on an MLS team in the first round before? I know like that team in Montreal area played Toronto, right, and lost, but after they beat Halifax. But that wasn't first round.
Yeah, and Simcoe Valley Rovers played Toronto FC, but I also kind of feel, was that first round or second round?
It was probably first round, I think. Did Simcoe beat anybody?
I can't remember. We'd have to go back into the archives and look. But anyway, it's a cool opportunity, and I think what an experience they're going to have heading out there, and it'll be fun to watch for sure.
Sure, looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there so you can buy Scott's book. It's called Here Come the Cavalry, and it's all about the history of pro soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on various social media platforms, Blue Sky, Instagram, sort of Twitter. We're still posting there sometimes, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.